Hello, I'm Mike Lindell,
Yes,
inventor of
okay.
MyPillow.
I don't know if
Thanks
it's on
to
mine
your
or not,
support,
but I'm getting
you've
like a
helped make
delay.
MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America.
I'm getting like a delay on
years,
my
you've helped
end.
MyPillow
I'm not sure if
create
that's...
thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We've got Jim Hoff from the Gateway Pundit. I'm Patty McMurray from 100% Fed Up. First, before we get started, introduce our guests, we just want to thank Mike Lindell of MyPillow for generously sponsoring our podcast. I actually brought a little prop with me today. I was talking to Jim Hoff earlier. This is my Roll and Go American flag pillow. And I was telling Jim that this is the perfect pillow if you have kids in the car, you don't want to have like a million pillows stacked up in the car, or if you're on an airplane, it's the perfect size pillow. It is the most comfortable pillow I've ever used to travel with. And the reason I'm showing it to everybody is because it's an inexpensive travel pillow that rolls up, and it's an incredible product that Mike Lindell sells. And as everybody knows, he's being boycotted by all the big box stores. So if you want to support Mike Lindell, buy directly from Mike Lindell. Use the 100GP code and get up to 66% off at checkout. So thanks to Mike Lindell again for sponsoring this important podcast. And this is, in my view at least, is one of the most important podcasts that Jim and I have ever done, because this is a story that has not appeared in the mainstream media anywhere. For whatever reason, this story has been flying under the radar. And it's one of the most incredible injustices of a young man's life that I've ever read about. And so I'm really grateful, first of all, to Mark Gerhard, who's the father of Lucas Gerhard, we're going to talk about, and then Adam D'Angeli, who's been on the front lines of this fight to expose the truth about what's happened to this young man in his life and how his First and Second Amendment rights have been incredibly violated in the state of Michigan. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to let Mark speak first. Mark is the father of Lucas Gerhard, the person that we're talking about, the young man that we're talking about. Mark, if you could tell us about your son and kind of a little bit of a backstory about why we're here today and what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks, Patty and Jim. I appreciate you bringing us on the show. This has been a long saga. Lucas initially started going through this in August of 2019. So we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of this travesty. I guess the best way to describe this is Lucas is a very conservative, very opinionated person. He's not vindictive. He's not ever antagonistic about it, but he'll defend his beliefs against anybody that's coming up against him, which, as we know, in local circles, it tends to really infuriate the other side. And in this case, Lucas was at school at Lake Superior State and ran into a group of those types of individuals and down. And the resulting fallout has been traumatic, I think, in terms of how this all really, I mean, I can tell in one words how this all fell out, but let me begin with Lucas's Eagle Scout. He's never been in trouble in his entire life. He's never had any issues with the law, not anything. He's got a perfectly clean record. Very straight-laced kid, and was very committed to becoming a law enforcement professional and passion, either local, state, or federal law enforcement, which is what he was going to Lake Superior State for. And that's essentially how this all started. Was he bought a rifle, an AR-15, which we know is a trigger to some on the left, a lot of them. And he essentially brought it up to school. Lake Superior State is a very conservative school in some ways. Like every other college, they have the liberal pocket. But the unique thing about that school is firearms, really any kind of weapon is allowed on campus. they have an on-campus armory in the public safety building where you can store anything. Store rifles, shotguns, rifles, crossbows. They just need to be at the double locked door. It has to be checked in and out. Public safety, ammunition as well. And it's a very common thing. A couple of times Lucas told me that they ran out of locker space where they had to store weapons basically cabled to poles or what have you. So a very popular thing to do up there. And I don't know how far do you want me to go up past this as far as the story goes, but that's kind of the background of how this all started.
Thank you, Colonel Mark, and thank you for your service. We love the background you have in your office. It's terrific. I wanted to recap a couple of things, Patty, because the sound was breaking up a little bit, but you have this young son who goes to Lake Superior University, very conservative campus. A lot of guns are allowed on campus. You have to lock them up. They have safeguards in place. Your son brought a gun to campus. And he's just a young conservative kid in a very conservative area of Michigan. And that's kind of where we're at so far. Is that correct, Patty?
Yeah, I would say, that's my understanding of the case so far. And Mark, if I could just ask you maybe to turn down your computer a little bit, because I think the feedback is what we're getting when you were talking. Maybe that's why we didn't hear you as well. But yeah, that is correct. And I found out about this story actually from Adam D'Angeli, and I'm going to ask him to kind of give us a little background about how he discovered this case about Lucas, and kind of tell us what happened once Lucas brought his gun that he bought himself lawfully when he brought it to school and turned it over to, is it an armory that they have there where you can lock up your gun when you're not using it?
Correct. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Adam?
Sure. So when I heard about this case, I was working in the legislative
safety.
office of State Representative John Riley. Mark Gerhard and Lucas really are his constituents in Oakland Township, Oakland County, Michigan. Lucas was in college at the time. And Mark approached me basically just politely asking if we could edit Michigan's anti-terrorist threat law because of what Lucas had been caught up in. Lucas had made a joke among his friends in a private Snapchat group saying, "This bad boy ought to melt some snowflakes, huh?" And for that alone, he has been in confinement since August of 2019 through the present day. He spent 83 days in jail. And
Adam,
then has been under house arrest ever since.
Can I just back up real quick? So you said he made a joke. Can you explain how he made the joke? He posted a picture of his gun, his new gun, correct? And in a private Snapchat to just a few select people, he sent a message that said, "This ought to melt."
Yeah, this ought to make some snowflakes melt, which obviously means this will offend liberals. I mean, there's no question what that means.
Right.
We
it's
know.
in common vernacular.
We use that term all the time. Mm-hmm.
And what happened was a snowflake who was not in the Snapchat group saw it on one of her friends' phones, and she called the police. And it has been an absolute comedy of errors. Well, comedy is not the right word for it. What's incredible is at no point in the legal process, not the police, not the prosecutor, not now even the judge in these cases have dismissed this case for what is absolutely obviously protected First Amendment speech, and also absolutely obviously not a terrorist threat in any sense of the word.
Absolutely.
So Mark, maybe you can tell us how did they come to the decision up in northern Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula, where your son was going to school? How did they come to the conclusion that your son was a threat to the campus for bringing a gun that he brought to school? He bought it lawfully. He brought it to a locker as soon as he got to school and had it locked up. How did it turn out that your son became a threat to the students on campus? What did he do to cause that to happen?
Well, it's funny you say that because he really didn't do anything to cause it. It was, a lawfully purchased gun. And again, it's very common. I mean, all ideologies bring up guns up there. But I think what happened was, as Adam alluded to, there was an absolute breakdown of rational thought from the very get-go in the investigation, producing of the warrant, and the prosecutors, I think, overzealous would be the best way to describe the prosecutor's office there, thinking they had an easy mark on this case. I can only tell you this: when they first got wind of this, when this was first reported, the girl that reported this, and I don't know if you want me to names, if you want me to say names, the girl that initially reported this was a very, very left-leaning antagonist of Lucas, and to the point where he had blocked her on Snapchat. Basically, she kept hammering him about Columbus Day should not be referred to as Columbus Day, should be Indigenous Peoples Day. And Lucas is like, get lost, it says Columbus Day on my calendar, and she just wouldn't let up, and it became to the point where Lucas said, you know what, let's just agree to disagree, and I'm just going to block you. So she was never the intended recipient of this. When this was reported to the police department, they came to Lucas. And let me reiterate the fact that the school was claiming, well, this is a huge threat. Lucas went up to school. The first thing he did was check in his rifle and his ammunition. Before he did anything else, he drove up to the Army, brought his rifle and ammo in, locked it up, and then went and packed his car into his room. Didn't hear anything. They gave him a room key. They gave him a building pass to just about every building on the campus. Nothing was said. He was in his room. And a few hours later, the Sault Ste. Marie police show up and wanted to talk to him about this snap. Many years and have involved the government for many years. And in my view, if the school thought this was a threat, they knew about it the night before, why didn't they have a police presence on campus? Why didn't they put the campus into a shelter in place or a lockdown, saying, hey, we may have a threat coming up. We don't know exactly what it is, but to be safe, you need to shelter in place. Have a police presence on campus. Have the state police intercept his car before it got over the bridge.
Right. Yeah. There's so many questions here. Colonel Mark and Adam, I just did a quick search on Google on watch snowflakes melt, and there's literally millions of hits. If you do watch leftist snowflakes melt, which is what we are talking about here with this expression, there's 1.3 million hits. There's also, and this is important, there's also the President of the United States has used let's watch snowflakes melt on Christmas. So this is a very common term. And the fact that some boy's life is being destroyed over it is such a travesty. But that's just a quick search I did as we're talking here this morning.
Right. And the bigger point, I think, is that a terrorist threat can't be made accidentally. And the Michigan anti-terrorist threat law says it's not a defense to say that you couldn't actually carry out the threat. That's not what the issue is in this case. That would apply if, for example, I called the school and said, I'm going to blow up a bus tomorrow. I can't later say, I wasn't going to actually do that. I couldn't do that. That's not a defense. But this was not a threat. It was not made to any target. It was not any, and this is all settled First Amendment law. This is not something that court should even be considering would still require a finding of fact from a jury. This fails as a matter of law. This is well beyond what is considered protected speech under the First Amendment.
Absolutely. And it's a very common term. Again,
I apologize for dropping out again.
We understand. We've had that problem with the reception in some areas. So yeah, it's amazing that they've done this. It's just such a shocking story. I'm so glad today that Patty arranged this, because it just blows your mind that this is actually happening in the United States.
And the most amazing thing is this is not even just something that we still haven't figured out yet. Lucas has been detained for almost 2 years now. They've had bond hearings where he was denied. First of all, he was held in jail for 83 days, denied bond completely. He's been under house arrest ever since the court. And at this point, they fully know they have no legal standing to do this anymore. The case is now before the Court of Appeals. They have again and again denied Lucas to be released from tether. He's confined to his home. He cannot go to school. He cannot go to work. He cannot go on the internet even, which you can imagine how great that is for someone his age. So if you think the lockdowns have been bad for us, imagine what it's been for him starting since August of 2019 and going on to this present day.
Absolutely.
You know,
Lucas has held it together very well.
I was just going to ask that question. I mean, as a parent, I can't imagine the pain that you must feel seeing your young son in the prime of his life. These are, you know, some of the best years of his life, being subjected to this injustice in the United States of America. I mean, I expect this in a banana republic, but not in the United States of America. I mean, first of all, we have free speech rights. We also have Second Amendment rights. And your son had every right to lawfully buy a weapon. He did everything the way that he should have done it, brought the gun to school, locked it up in the proper place, took all the proper precautions, followed the rules. And because some person at school who disagreed with his ideology reported him, his life has been essentially turned upside down. I don't want to say it's been destroyed because, you know, from what I understand, he was an Eagle Scout. He's a really good student, good person. But how does he go? Where does he go from here? I mean, this is going to be on his record, right? This charge against him that he spent 83 days in jail. I mean, is there a chance that when this is over, if he's finally released and able to go into the society again, if his record will be expunged so this doesn't follow him for the rest of his life? Do you know the answer to that question, Adam?
That's a good question, Patty. And I do, in a way. I think that a large part of it is that the arrest will always be there. It'll show on any military record, if they're doing a records check, law enforcement or college, just the arrest. So there's gonna be a felony arrest on his record that he's got to explain away for the rest of his life, no matter what. Assuming this gets dismissed in the Court of Appeals, and I don't know how far we got along on that because I dropped off the net, but you know, he's been allowed to have an interlocutory appeal, which is an appeal before his trial. And the chance of that happening, I've been told it's more than 1 in 100. It's like being accepted to the Supreme Court for them to hear a case. It's that rare. And the fact that they're seeing this as a huge breach of his First Amendment, let alone all of the other fallout from the almost, it's unbelievable how it's failed him at every level. It is like a banana republic, Patty. It's infuriating to me. I mean, I deployed many times to many different places, not so friendly, and I saw a lot of really screwed up governments, and I would never have thought that something like this could have happened right here in the United States and Michigan. I mean, it's I can't tell you how demoralizing that is to me in itself. And seeing the system and the very people that Lucas depended on failing, you know, in law enforcement, he still intends to be a law enforcement officer, but he's going to have to explain this. And if it gets dismissed in the Court of Appeals, that'll help a lot in determining his future course of action. But you know, that's never a sure thing. And again, we know we have legal jurists that are as ideological as anyone else does. So anything can happen. It's a roll of the dice.
Right.
So I just want to be clear. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just had a question because I noticed that the articles on Lucas that are out there, one of the articles says that they were going to sue the prosecution for charging Lucas the way they did. Has anything come about from that case?
You know, I haven't seen that article, and I don't that subject hasn't even been brought up. Quite honestly, we haven't gone down that road. You know, right now we're fighting to get him justice and get him cleared off of this ridiculous charge. And you know, there has been some incredibly ridiculous decisions made at all levels on this. But I really, at this point, it's so far down the road. I mean, this has been, you know, we've been fighting this for 2 years. You know, and I've almost been under house arrest, almost the same as Lucas, because he's totally 100% reliant on me to take care of him. He has I had a landline telephone. That's his only connection to the outside world. Like Adam said, he can use the internet, not a smartphone. That's pretty easy for a 20-something-year-old kid. I had to move all of my weapons, my personal guns, and even my Mameluke sword, which is a ceremonial Marine Corps officer sword, which is more of a club than a sword. They made me get that out of the house as well. So there's been an incredible invasive process in this, and the fact, you know, it's a testament to Lucas's character that he's held it together. were sold.
Was it just one prosecutor that is behind all of this, or is there a group
Well,
of
there's
several individuals?
the chief prosecutor up there, Mr. Stratton, is that he's ultimately responsible for his entire staff. I mean, and I'm not sure exactly where the decision making. He must have signed off on the charges originally. Initially, there was an assistant prosecutor, Kristen Giomi, who took the case on it in the district court, and then once it was fleeted up to circuit court and bound over, his chief assistant prosecutor took over. So there is a whole host of questions that we have as why they're pursuing this. But again, I think a lot of it comes down to political now, because this has been going on for 2 years, and they spent an extraordinary amount of money on this case. In fact, I was told as much as they would spend on a murder case. They've dropped a lot of taxpayer dollars pursuing a case. They probably know that they have no chance of winning, but at this point, they're so down the road that if they dropped it, they'd probably be in a little bit of trouble. So that's only my personal view. I really don't know what's going on there, but it really makes no sense to me, either politically or legally, of why they're doing what they're doing.
Jim, if I could just interject and maybe clarify something here. So first of all, as Mark was saying, yeah, even if they prevail in the Court of Appeals, and if they don't, even when they prevail before a jury, all that means is that Lucas is not getting sentenced to a felony. It doesn't mean he gets 2 years of his life back. He would have to sue the county, and potentially, and it's a long story to get into why LSSU might also be partly responsible. That's all a road ahead, and that could involve tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation to be able to get justice for Lucas in the long term. Now, separate from that, there was actually, Lucas's attorneys actually did file suit against the prosecutor, and what happened is the same judge in the case that's been ruling against him improperly this entire time, improperly said this is part of the criminal suit and then just dismissed it. So that's as far as that went, but that's not going to be the end of it if they have to sue after this is all over, after Lucas is free and clear to be able to reclaim the damage that's been done to him through this malicious prosecution over the past 2 years.
Yeah, and that's, and a big part of that is the financial aspect of this. I mean, I've the cost of a legal defense, as everybody probably knows, is quite extraordinary, and I've thrown everything I've had I could personally against this. Adam helped out a lot. He established a GoFundMe, which is I've been able to recoup roughly a third or so of the expenditures I've personally outlaid. But it is an expensive venture, and when it comes to anything, if we're talking about anything afterwards, I don't know if I'd have that chance.
I was going to ask too. You guys may have noticed that we were scrolling across the bottom of the page the GoFundMe address for Justice for Lucas. So we are going to run that during our broadcast today. Is there also any letter writing campaign or email campaign to any of these officials? Because we would like to certainly spearhead that 100% Fed Up and Gateway Pundit, so we can get our readers, to bring some attention to this and to let these officials know that we're watching them, and that we're not happy with the fact that they're destroying a young man's life and abusing this man and abusing the rights of not just him, but every American by what they're doing.
Well, I'll tell you what, we don't have a letter writing campaign going just yet, and I don't know if putting pressure on a court in that way is necessarily the best thing. What we may do, what we did in the last year when I was working in Representative Riley's office, is introduce legislation that essentially highlighted that issue by spelling out more clearly what the elements of a terrorist threat actually are for incompetent judges like the one in Lucas's case. We may reintroduce that and call for hearings, and that might generate more public pressure on lawmakers to start taking this case up. And so that's certainly one option. So we don't have something on that yet. If we do, we will post notice at the GoFundMe. So, but right now, I think the case is up for consideration in the Court of Appeals next month. So I think maybe at this point we want to keep it there. But I think if we're going, we may come back and try to re-raise this issue once again in the legislature. And that would be a better target as lawmakers and getting the grassroots involved. The other thing that happened was at the time, the representative in Lake Superior State University's district was the Speaker of the House, and he doesn't, leadership doesn't tend to focus on local issues. Now there's a new one in there who's a freshman, so maybe he'll be interested in taking up this case. So we'll have those conversations in the near future.
I just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, Lee Chatfield, the former Speaker of the House that you're talking about, that was the representative in that district, is also the same representative that didn't think there was any voter fraud in Michigan, and wouldn't do anything to support all the hundreds and hundreds of people that turned in sworn affidavits about what they saw in the election. So, that's the same Republican now lobbyist, Speaker of the House that we're talking about. So these are our elected officials, people. I mean, you need to pay attention, because any person that would allow this kid's life to be stolen from him, it's unconscionable to me. The people up in the Upper Peninsula need to answer for this. The prosecutor and assistant prosecutor. This is incredible to me. I just want to clarify, just so that everybody's clear on this. Lucas didn't have any prior record. He had never threatened anybody. Didn't have any disciplinary issues at the college. I mean, this was a first-time offense, and this was something that was brought to their attention by a student who already had an issue with Lucas because of his political beliefs. Correct?
That is absolutely 100% correct. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But by the way, if I might revisit my previous remark about letter writing campaigns, here's a letter writing campaign that everybody can do. Tell people you know personally about this case, and share Lucas's story, and share the GoFundMe. This is a case that is at the nexus of so many critical issues we face right now. First Amendment issues, Second Amendment issues, cancel culture, campus culture, the abuse of prosecutorial resources, the decline of courts to be able to understand what our basic civil liberties are. All of it is in this case. And in this case, the fact pattern is so absolutely one-sided that Lucas did everything right, everything properly, and the other side did everything wrong and everything improperly. And they are maintaining this farce because they're in too deep now. And they're continuing to this day to torment Lucas, having denied him even his basic freedom, even though he's no threat to anybody whatsoever, even though he made absolutely nothing that any reasonable person could interpret to be a threat. So please, everybody, spread the word about this case. And thank you guys for covering this story. We deeply appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate it very much. And Lucas,
it's shocking. It's just shocking.
It is astonishing. Yeah, Lucas appreciates this as well. I mean, he lives this every day. I mean, this is all he thinks about every day for the last 2 years.
He's still locked up. I think it's a travesty every single day that this continues. It's a travesty on Michigan, on our whole government, and shame on us for not doing anything or not hearing more about this story. I'm so glad Patty brought this up to me. I do think, Patty, though, that if these elected officials had a little bit of pressure, they would act. They're not going to act if they don't hear about this. We're going to make sure we can do what we can so that more people hear about this. But I do think that a few of these limp-wristed Republicans and Democrats need to take some action, because I don't care if this kid is a Democrat or if he's a Republican or independent or black or white or gay or straight or anything. This is a travesty, what they're doing to this boy. And I think there's millions of people around the country that would be outraged, absolutely outraged what they're doing to your son. I think anything we can do to help, we're glad to help. We just pray that this ends soon, because every day this continues to go on is a shame on our country.
Thank you. And I agree. I mean, that's, there's one thing, elections, there are elections, and the prosecutor is an elected position, and he runs as a Republican, which we all know doesn't always mean they're Republican or conservative. And I do not think that he nor the staff he's chosen falls along those lines. And it's a very red county up there. So I think people might believe her when they see an R next to the name. They might have to, if there's second thoughts, if this story got out to them and they understood exactly what this prosecutorial team was doing with unmitigated power. I mean, that's what shocked me the most. This is just how much power a prosecutor has and how much discretion they have to do whatever they want with whatever they want, using funds that are basically given to them in trust from the taxpayers. And it's absolute travesty, in my view, of what is being mishandled in this case, in my view.
I just have a couple questions for you, Mark. I want to ask, first of all, has Lucas been able to have any friends visit him, or is he basically in solitary confinement in your home?
So he's able to have friends visit him, which they do, which has been a godsend. He's got some great friends.
Good.
And that has been, obviously they can't get online and play games or watch movies or any of that stuff because it's just not allowed. But he does have friends visit him, and that's been a much of a relief valve for him than anything else. So yes, thankfully.
Yeah, and that is a godsend. I mean, as a parent, that would just be unimaginable to not have even allow him to socialize with other people. Would be incredible. But the other question I had is, what about his school, Lake Superior State, or is it Superior State College or Lake Superior State College?
Lake Superior State University. They're small university.
Okay. What about his credits? Because the school, he's not going to school there anymore. How did his relationship with the school end?
Well, it's funny you say that. Well, so he was incarcerated from the very get-go, and my view on this was that it was so ridiculous. I thought, okay, this is going to blow over, and this is going to be dismissed. I firmly believe that from the beginning. I could not, looking at the initial face of this, I thought there's no way. So I had gone and talked to the human resources director at the school, and I wasn't told anything, but my instinct was that he was probably going to be expelled. Just on because he had been incarcerated under a felony charge. So I disenrolled him because I didn't want that to happen, and I didn't think Lucas would have any inkling to go back to that school and attend there afterwards. Just thinking forward for him. I don't know if he really was intending on that or not, but my view was I just wanted to get him out of that environment. So I disenrolled him, and if he does go transfer to another school, I hope he does. Hopefully a lot of those credits will transfer with him.
And where was he incarcerated? Was he incarcerated in the Upper Peninsula?
The Chippewa County Jail or correctional facility, which ironically is also a federal holding facility. And I believe there were a couple of actual terrorists that were being housed there on a separate side of the facility, which is just the irony of ironies, actual terrorists. But again, he was there. It's a jail, so it wasn't as bad as a prison. They did have some amenities, but it's still for a 20-year-old kid. He's still a kid at the time. He says, "No, I'm a man, Dad." Well, it's a hard reality for someone that's never been in trouble in his life to suddenly find himself not only in jail, but with people that are there for reasons. And that was a shocking wake-up call for everybody. And having him there for 83 days, me being able to do nothing about it. I guess I'll explain why he was there for 83 days. So the prosecutor was adamantly opposed to letting him out of jail if he wasn't tethered inside of Chippewa County, which is everything north of the bridge. And I begged and pleaded. I said, look, I don't have any kind of a family up here. I don't have any social structure. I'm not going to bail my kid out of jail and then have him in a hotel room until this thing is over. I said, that's insane. I said, let him, if you want him tethered, I will gladly tether him out of my house. I'm a retired Marine colonel. I've got a top secret clearance. I work for the government. If I let him flee, my life is pretty much over too. So I would think that I could take him on my own recognizance, and that alone would be trustworthy enough. And there was absolutely no give on that. They refused it, and they held on to that. And for 83 days until it was bound over to circuit court. And as soon as that happened, when we got into circuit, the judge relented and allowed him to be out of my house.
Yeah, wow.
Which is also extremely expensive on top of exorbitant bail that they charged as well.
Yeah, the bail was set at it was initially set at $250,000. It somehow along the line, I don't know at what point, was knocked down to $200,000. But I still had to pony up $20,000 in cash, literally cash, a briefcase of money. They wouldn't take a check or a credit card or anything.
Wow.
So we really had to carry up $20,000 in cash and put it on the counter and let the clerk count it while I awaited him to be released. So, and the tether is extremely expensive. A lot of the GoFundMe honestly is covered that expense along with the, of course, legal expenses. Our lawyers charge money for a reason.
You have to pay for the tether?
Yes.
That's your obligation to pay for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yes, that is. I can tell you it's approximately $500 a month.
Wow,
So-
I had no idea. I thought that was a government expense. I had no idea that that was an expense that the victim in this case would incur. That's unbelievable.
This whole
It
story
really
is
is.
just one abuse after another. It's just
Yeah.
compiling abuses. I can't imagine how these people sleep at night, these prosecutors. I've never heard of, it's rare that you hear such a really horrendous story and how adults are treating a child. And I still consider your son a child. I don't care. He's 19, but that's a pretty young man. And the fact that they're going to abuse this boy over and over and over again is just one of the most tragic stories I think I've heard in a long time. It makes me just sick to my stomach. And Patty, we're going to put up a couple names, I hope, of some lawmakers that are
Absolutely.
can reach out to and just explain that they feel that this is, of course, responsibly and respectfully reach out and just say how distasteful this is and what a travesty this is. But I definitely want to do that, and I know Patty does. And Patty, is there any other types of action we can take? We're going to try to get people to come to your GoFundMe page, and we will definitely promote this at the Gateway Pundit and 100% Fed Up. But this is it just makes my blood boil to hear this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Same.
anyway, Patty, is there anything else we need to tell our
No, I
audience?
think, I want to let both of you know, Mark and Adam, we're going to do everything we can to help you. We'll both, write about this. We'll include the GoFundMe. I mean, it breaks my heart, Mark, that here you are, you served your country courageously, and here you are now spending money to have your son locked down in your house and tethered. It affects your job. It affects your income. You're trying to pay the legal fees for your kid that's been unjustly charged. It's incredible to me. And I think that, of course, Jim and I are going to do everything we can to help you and to help raise money. And I'm asking anybody that's watching this, consider making a donation. It doesn't matter how small the donation is or large. I'm sure that they'll be very grateful for anything that you give to help to fund Lucas's legal defense fund and to help his dad. I mean, it's a horrible situation all the way around. And I'm sure that they would appreciate anything that people that are watching can give to help them out.
And Patty, we'll keep in touch as well on anything else that we can encourage your readers to do as the case develops. And I would just also say, since leaving the legislature, I now formed a group called Rescue Michigan, which is all about getting grassroots people organized around the state. And our main issue is election integrity. But the big thing is having people form conservative grassroots networks across the state in their own communities, because we're 300 miles south of Chippewa County. We can't control what's going to happen in Chippewa County. But I think there ought to be a few Republicans up in Chippewa County that understand they've got a real problem with their prosecutor and their judges. And this is why we need to have people organizing locally everywhere in this country, because stuff like this is not, this is, I think, an extraordinary case, but stuff like this is happening everywhere. And it's not always as cut and dried as this case is, but you know what? People need to be on alert, because every aspect of government right now, if they're not known patriots, chances are they're being either bowled over by the radical left or they are the radical left.
And I can tell you, and the prosecutor, although they maintain a large part of the problem in this case, it goes deeper than that. It goes to the school itself, who didn't defend Lucas at all, against these charges. They didn't stand by him at all. Which tells me a lot of their political leanings. But also the police department too. Quick story. When he was interviewed, the sergeant, the police officer in charge of the investigation, asked him what he meant by melting snowflakes. And Lucas said, well, melting, they'll melt their minds. Liberals hate this particular weapon, and they don't, they will melt them in many ways ideologically. And he said, well, have you ever seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? And Lucas said, of course. And he said, well, what happens to the Wicked Witch? And Lucas said, well, Dorothy and her pals throw a bucket of water on her and she melts. And he says, she melts, so in fact she dies, right? And Lucas said, well, I guess so. And the cop looked at him and says, well, that's what we're talking about. And
that cop is insane.
I was shocked. I said, you must have got that wrong, son. But I saw luckily he had body camera film, and I saw the video, and it went exactly like that. And in the warrant for his arrest, the search warrant, it listed extremist political views many times. And again, Lucas isn't a member of any kind of way out, far right crazy organization. He is just a conservative kid who happens to defend his political views. And the police reports labeled extremist political views as calling out reasons why they needed to search his Snapchat and why he needed to be arrested. And the prosecutor signed off on that. So this is a very deep lying institutional problem.
Amen.
Yeah, Mark, if you have footage of that body cam footage, we'd love to see it.
You know what? I'll talk to his attorneys. His attorneys, by the way, are Matt Granda and Phil Ellison. Phil's an appeals expert. Matt is criminal justice. They've been wonderful. We've gone through a few attorney teams, which were competent, but Matt and Phil were really a good fit. And I will discuss it with them. And if I can get you any of that, I will. It should be open source.
These attorneys, by the way, are the same two attorneys that sued the governor of Michigan for the lockdowns and sued the Secretary of State for a policy on impeding poll challengers. They have been champions on everything that's been going on in Michigan, and we're thrilled to work with them.
Yeah, I can say a lot of things have gone wrong in this case as far as the luck of the draw kind of things, but finding Matt and Phil, which actually Adam introduced us to, thankfully. Thank you, Adam. That has been the largest sigh of relief and the best luck we've had is in connecting with those two gentlemen. They are absolutely outstanding. I'm impressed every time we talk to them. I really am.
And Patty, if you want to publish them, I'll send you some of the case documents because their writing is extremely incisive.
Okay, that'd be great. I appreciate it. Well, Jim has another engagement, so we're going to sign off. And again, we can't thank you enough, both of you, for being here, Adam and Mark. And in addition to praying for your son, which I'm sure that I'll do, Jim will do, and our viewers will do, I'm hoping that we'll get some contributions to help you with your legal defense fund as well. And do everything that we can. We will do everything we can, Jim and I both, to make sure that this story gets out to the public, that more people see this story and understand what a travesty, what an injustice this is. It's incredible what they've done to your son, this young man's life.
Well, thank you so much for covering this.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Jim. And you're patriots. I mean, it's meaningful to Lucas and myself that there are good people like you out there that are doing their thing.
We hope
if
this
you need
nightmare
anything
is
from me in the future, let me know. I'm available for anything.
great. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us.
Great, thank you.
Take care.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got my pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit my